radical Hindu nationalists as he returned home from a prayer meeting in Bikumpar village, located in the Bareilly district of Uttar Pradesh. The radicals accused the pastor of forcefully converting Hindus to Christianity. Pastor Kumar told ICC that the attack seemed well planned and he thought they were going to kill him. He was accused of giving money to people to make them convert to Christianity. The attack lasted for 2 hours, leading the pastor to believe he was going to die. Christian rights activist Dinanath Jaswar from the advocacy group Alliance Defending Freedom said police in Uttar Pradesh have time and again unleashed their anger against minorities. And he said it appears the Hindu extremist groups are closely working with the police officers to target Christian worship. India is ranked number 10 on Open Doors 2020 World Watch list of the countries where it's most difficult to be a Christian. The group notes that attacks on Christians in India have been on the rise since Narendra Modi of the Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party took office as Prime Minister in 2014. Residents of coastal Texas and Louisiana have been urged to evacuate as Hurricane Laura has strengthened to Category 4 and is expected to make landfall late Wednesday with the potential to cause much devastation and deadly flooding. As of early Wednesday afternoon, Hurricane Laura consisted of maximum sustained winds of 140 miles per hour, according to the National Hurricane Center, a division of the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. With Laura swirling in the Gulf of Mexico and its landfall imminent, more than 500,000 people living along the Gulf Coast have been ordered to evacuate. On Tuesday, over 385,000 residents were instructed to leave the cities of Beaumont, Galveston, and Port Arthur in Texas. In the low-lying area of Calcasieu Parish in southwest Louisiana, a mandatory evacuation order issued Tuesday affects more than 200,000 residents. Additionally, neighboring Cameron Parish is also under a mandatory order, while parts of other parishes have been ordered to evacuate. Hurricane Laura's landfall coincides with the 15th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina's landfall and the 3rd anniversary of Hurricane Harvey. Both storms caused catastrophic damage along the Gulf Coast and across the southern U.S. As many as 1 in 5 churches could permanently close as a result of shutdowns stemming from the coronavirus pandemic, according to David Kinnaman, president of the prominent Christian research organization Barna Group. In an interview with NPR Monday regarding the status of American churches after months of shutdowns, Kinnaman said all the churches were handling things pretty swimmingly at first. Circumstances have changed for some. He noted that although many churches have opened as states' shutdown orders are loosened, their services have had a lot less people coming. They are recognizing that the relationships that they thought were much deeper with people were actually not as deep as they expected, Kinnaman told NPR. Kinnaman then explained that in keeping with research from earlier this year, he still expected to see 1 in 5 churches permanently close within the next 18 months. A Uyghur woman has called on the Christian community to condemn the atrocities her community continues to face at the hands of the Chinese Communist Party, warning that the tragedy of the Uyghur people will be the future of the entire world if this threat is not addressed. Rushan Abbas, founder and executive director of Campaign for Uyghurs and a former Uyghur service journalist with Radio Free Asia, participated in an August 21st webinar hosted by the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission that focused on China's persecution of the Uyghur Muslim community in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region in China. China, she said, is not just treating Uyghurs as a problem to be exterminated, but is also seeking to control the world order and those outside its borders. They are literally declaring the need to rewrite the Bible and the Holy Quran to be compatible with the communist atheistic ideology. While China is openly conducting genocide, the world is muted as China buys basically the compliance of the business world. The tragedy of the Uyghur people will be the future of the entire world if this threat is not addressed and if we don't take action, she stated. The CCP specifically targets Uyghur women, Abbas said, citing a recent report that documented dropping birth rates among Uyghurs because of the practices such as forced sterilizations, abortion, and even the killing of babies born alive. In unsealed video testimony released on Monday, Planned Parenthood officers admit under oath that some of the abortion doctors have changed abortions to harvest more usable fetal organs and tissues. The new video released by the Center for Medical Progress includes unsealed testimony from Dr. Deborah Nucatola, Planned Parenthood Federation of America's Senior Director of Medical Services from 2009 to 2016, who now holds regional leadership positions with the organization. Yesterday was the first time she said people wanted lungs, Nucatola explained. And then, like I said, always as many intact livers as possible, she stated. In the undercover video, Nucatola described using ultrasound guidance to flip a fetus to a feet-first position to intact extraction and successful organ harvesting at Planned Parenthood. However, when questioned by congressional investigators, Nucatola had publicly denied that such abortions were used in Planned Parenthood's fetal tissue research programs. Earlier this month, 28 U.S. senators wrote to Attorney General Bill Barr demanding an update on action the Department of Justice has taken to enforce the laws against trafficking in human fetuses and other violations. An Indiana police officer surprised a grocery store worker with thousands of dollars after witnessing his heartwarming act of kindness. In a video posted on Instagram, Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Officer Molly Gross watched Caleb Harris help a blind customer with his shopping, then assist the elderly man with loading the groceries into his vehicle. This young employee at Mayo was helping this elderly gentleman do all of his shopping today because he couldn't see well. He even walked him back to his car, Gross said during the interview. The police officer recently launched a Pay It Forward challenge where she raises money, then gives it to deserving and kind citizens after they perform an act of kindness. A few days after she had shared the video, more than $4,700 was donated, which she gave to an unexpected Harris. He plans to use the money wisely by giving a portion of it to his church, some towards buying a car, and the rest will go to helping others in need. A 3,200-year-old Canaanite fortress is shedding light into the ancient days of the judges as described in the Bible. Israeli archaeologists and teen volunteers uncovered the 12th century BC fortress in southern Israel, close to Kibbutz Galon near Kiryat Gat. The fortress found provides a glimpse into the geopolitical reality described in the Judges book, in which Canaanites, Israelites, and Philistines are fighting each other, explained the Israeli Antiquities Authority archaeologists Sargano and Itamar Wasbin. The fortress is 18 by 18 meters and has 4 watchtowers that were built in the 4 corners. Excavators found a massive threshold carved from rock and the entrance of the buildings and a courtyard with stone slabs and columns inside. The site is open for public visitation thanks to a collaboration between the Israel Antiquities Authority and the southern region of the Jewish National Fund. Around 200 friends and family members gathered early Thursday to mourn the death of Rabbi Shai Ohayon, 39, who died Wednesday afternoon after a stabbing attack in the central Israeli city of Petah Tikva. Police identified a Palestinian man named Khalil Abd al-Khaliq Dawakat, 46, as the suspect in the attack. Dawakat was arrested at the scene of the incident, and police spokesman Mickey Rosenfeld confirmed it was a terror attack. Police found a bloody knife on Dawakat at the time of his arrest. Israeli paramedics found Ohayon critically wounded and without a pulse at a bus stop at the Segula Junction. He was transferred to the Belenson Medical Center where he died of his injuries. Dawakat, a father of 6, had a work permit and was legally allowed to be in Israel, Israeli authorities said. The Israeli military raided Dawakat's home in the northern West Bank village of Rujib and began plans to demolish his home. Tuaca did not have a history of terrorism, and it's highly unusual for Palestinians with work permits in Israel to perpetrate terror attacks. They must undergo intense background checks before being allowed in Israel. A woman was ousted from her job at a literary agency for tweeting that transgender identifying males who say they are women are not biologically female. Sasha White, a literary agency assistant, was fired from her job at the Tobias Literary Agency following her tweet of a social media comment that read, "Trans woman being vulnerable to male violence does not make you woman," the Daily Mail reports. The Tobias Literary Agency, which has offices in Boston, New York City, and Nashville, acknowledged in a now deleted tweet that White had indeed been terminated. "We do not have any room for anti-trans sentiments at TLA, period. Thus, we have parted ways with Sasha," the tweet said. TLA also announced that it made a donation to a Black trans charity after White's termination. As a result of her firing, the hashtag "I stand with Sasha White" trended on Twitter Tuesday as supportive users on the platform linked White's situation with hashtag "I stand with J.K. Rowling" from earlier this summer. An 18-year-old Christian servant in Pakistan was beaten for refusing her employer's demands to convert to Islam, according to her family and a London-based human rights group. According to the Center for Legal Aid, Assistance and Settlement, an interdenominational aid agency, Anika Shahzad from the Firozwala district, Shakapura, in the Punjab province, was beaten earlier this month, a few days after she took a job as a live-in servant. The charity reports that Shahzad comes from a poor family and accepted the job as a domestic servant for the Muslim family, which paid about $30 a month. She was referred to the job by a neighbor. But after being pressured by members of the employing family for her to leave Christ and to follow Islam, Shahzad was said to have told the family that she decided to quit the job. Her decision to quit angered the family members and they began to beat the teenager. After the beating, Shahzad was taken back to her parents' home in Firozwala. The employer told the girl's father that she had been beaten for stealing money. After the child was taken for medical treatment, her parents began asking questions about why she was beaten. Class UK reports that in response, the employer's family accused the girl's father of stealing money, although he had never visited the house where his daughter was working. The family has sought the help of a local member of parliament, Tariq Masih Gill. The family believes that their daughter was beaten only because she refused to convert to Islam, according to Class UK. Class UK director Nasir Saeed said in a statement that even though the Punjab Domestic Workers Act was passed in Lahore High Court in January 2019, abuses against domestic servants continue in Pakistan as the law largely remains unenforced. 45 historic churches and chapels in the UK that have been hit hard financially due to COVID-19 lockdowns are receiving hundreds of thousands of pounds from the National Churches Trust. The charity says that the novel coronavirus has detrimentally affected the finances of churches, with many not being able to raise funds from parishioners, visitors, or from building rentals. The grant money will fund needed repairs and maintenance and the installation of community facilities across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. BBC broadcaster and journalist Hugh Edwards, who's also the vice president of the National Churches Trust, said that the UK's historic churches and chapels are a vital part of their national heritage. During the coronavirus pandemic, churches have done so much to help vulnerable local people and boost morale. He stated many churches need to carry out urgent repairs and install modern facilities to ensure their buildings can continue to be used well into the future. But the cost of this work is often far beyond what most congregations can pay for themselves, and many are facing funding shortages because of the coronavirus lockdown. The latest round of funding comes after grants were distributed earlier this year. Thus far, the National Churches Trust has awarded or recommended 145 grants totaling more than €1 million. According to its website, the National Churches Trust offers 4 types of grants, from cornerstone grants that fund essential structural repair projects and install kitchens and toilets, to preventative maintenance and micro grants that support the cost of maintenance services. The Republican National Convention this week has displayed a bold pro-life agenda, highlighting the need for the protection of the unborn. One of the primetime speakers Tuesday night was pro-life advocate Abby Johnson, who told her personal story about how she worked in a Planned Parenthood clinic, rising to the job of abortion clinic director. Her story is told in a book and a movie titled Unplanned. Johnson recalled that when she was in college, Planned Parenthood approached her at a volunteer fair, and they talked about helping women in crisis and their commitment of keeping abortion safe, legal, and rare. Convinced to volunteer, Johnson said she was later offered a full-time job as a medical assistant before being promoted to director of the clinic. She said she truly believed she was helping women, but things drastically changed in 2009. In April, she was awarded Planned Parenthood's Employee of the Year award and invited to their annual gala, where they present the Margaret Sanger Award named for their founder. Margaret Sanger was a racist who believed in eugenics. Her goal when founding Planned Parenthood was to eradicate the minority population, Johnson said. Today, almost 80% of Planned Parenthood abortion facilities are strategically located in minority neighborhoods, she noted. And every year, Planned Parenthood celebrates its racist roots by presenting the Margaret Sanger Award. Johnson said later that August, her supervisor assigned her a new quota to meet, an abortion quota. Johnson was expected to sell double the abortions performed the previous year. When she pushed back, underscoring Planned Parenthood's public-facing goal of decreasing abortions, she was reprimanded, and she was told, "Abortion is how we make our money," she recalled. The tipping point in her career with the nation's largest abortion provider came a month later, when a physician asked her to assist with an ultrasound-guided abortion, and nothing prepared her for what she saw on the screen, Johnson told viewers. She said, "An unborn baby fighting back, desperate to move away from the suction, and I'll never forget what the doctor said next. 'Beam me up, Scotty,'" she stated. Johnson said she left the clinic looking back only to remember why she now advocates for life. She's the founder of Then There Were None, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping clinic workers leave the abortion industry. So far, the organization has helped more than 600 former abortion workers transition out of the industry. California lawmakers are racing an end-of-the-month deadline to pass a bill that would use taxpayer dollars to fund transgender healthcare services for children and adults. The bill provides grants to hospitals and clinics that provide hormone therapy and gender reassignment surgeries and are affiliated with organizations led by transgender activists. The California Senate Appropriations Committee passed the Transgender Wellness and Equity Fund, AB 2218, on August 10th with a 5-2 vote. Lawmakers are pushing to approve it before August 31st, which marks the end of the 2020 session. Assemblymember Miguel Santiago, one of the bill's co-authors, says it provides critical medical and direct supportive services for transgender people, non-conforming and or intersex people, otherwise known as TGI. He said California's transgender community faces obstacles in receiving safe and non-discriminatory health care, and the bill will fund programs where TGI-identified people can receive safe, competent, and inclusive health care. But some California doctors are speaking out against the measure because of concerns about the medical risks for children, like infertility. They're also worried about a loss of treatment control for healthcare professionals. Dr. James Grisolia, a San Diego neurologist and California State Director of the American Academy of Medical Ethics, told CBN News that this issue is most troubling for children. It very explicitly says that the funds are going to trans organizations who will then be working with medical clinics that they choose, so the transgender organizations will be in the driver's seat on the treatment of children, Grisolia said. The problem with that is up to 85% of children think that they were born in the wrong body. They will actually change their minds by the time they get to adulthood, so we don't think it makes sense to treat a temporary problem with hormones and surgery that could cause permanent harm, he stated. Dr. Michael Ladlow, a Rockland-based pediatric endocrinologist, told state lawmakers that there's no clear research that supports improved mental health outcomes for transgender adults who take hormones and go forward with gender reassignment surgeries. Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi, in his first White House meeting with President Donald J. Trump, said the United States helped Iraq enormously in defeating ISIS and also toppling the Saddam Hussein regime. Brave Americans totaling 4,888 gave their lives for the liberation of Iraq and the 25 million Iraqi people from the terror of Saddam Hussein. More than 32,000 were seriously injured, and 2.5 million, one for every 10 Iraqis, served in Iraq, from building schools to repairing roads to rebuilding its infrastructure and more. Most people are unaware that Iraq was formerly Assyria, the first nation to accept Christ, which went on to become the largest missionary sending people in history, bringing the gospel first to Europe, Asia, and much of the world. Most of us owe our very fate to this very special band of people, the descendants of the great Assyrian Empire that before the liberation of Iraq made up 10% of the country's population, and as the indigenous original people of the country were much loved. Following the liberation of Iraq, the initial Great Freedom gave way to attack primarily from neighboring Iran, who in the vacuum created by the sudden withdrawal of U.S. forces in 2011, gave birth to another enemy, ISIS, and these precious people now fell under attack by two forces at once. Finally liberated from ISIS, the long-suffering Assyrian Christians of Iraq, now greatly diminished to less than half of their previous numbers, are finally coming back, encouraged by the promise of the Assyrian administrative area, a restoration of the Assyrian nation, albeit under special provisions of the Iraqi constitution. Here's a recap for today's news. Suffering for the sake of the gospel, Hindu radicals in India brutally beats a pastor for 2 hours. And Hurricane Laura tracker projected path map of Category 4 storm, over 500,000 people ordered to evacuate. And 1 in 5 churches faces permanent closure within 18 months due to COVID-19 shutdowns. Today's news was reported by CBN, The Christian Post, Charisma News, and The Christian Headlines. My name is Siobhan Singh, and this is Kingdom News. Until next time, do have a blessed evening.
Father, we thank you this morning because you are great. And you are greatly to be praised. You are greatly to be exalted. You are greatly to be lifted up on high. And as we magnify your name today, as we glorify you, as we lift you up, we thank you, God, that your presence is going to fill this house and it's already here. Let's begin to open our mouth for the next 2 minutes. Come on, just begin to give him praise somebody. The Bible says that